Hi, and welcome back to our channel, Pay Down Debt Solutions. I'm Jen, and today I am going to talk to you guys about things that steal your wealth and ways you can change that outcome. Now, you guys are banking traditionally, and those traditional bankers out there, the ones running their finances through money into that checking account, shelling out and paying for their bills as soon as that money hits their account, are going to learn a different way. And so when we talk today about your car, which is one of those things that steals your wealth, we're going to show you a new way of banking, and changing how you make your payments is going to change the trajectory of your life, just as it changed mine and just as it changed Dan, my husband. So those of you that don't know us, my name is Jen, my husband over there is Dan, and we come to you because we learned a different way to bank. When traditional banking had started to fail us, okay, and we were becoming payment poor by shelling out all of these payments month after month after month. And as business owners, we know that the debts that you take on to run your business can sometimes be a killer. And that's exactly what happened to us. So we were living, basically paycheck to paycheck, trying to run these businesses and trying to be successful. And but we were still payment strapped and payment poor. So we found a different way. Now, I come to you as an ex-banker and as an ex-branch manager before I started my businesses. So I know these banking products very well. So what I'm going to tell you today and talk to you about is your car loan and how that car loan is keeping you broke, okay? So your car is stealing your wealth. And what are the two largest loan payments that most people make monthly? Well, what are they? Well, if you think about it, right? It's going to be that mortgage, number one. And number two, it's more than likely a car payment. Could be a boat payment or something else if you're lucky enough not to have a car payment. But most Americans right now have a car payment. And not only do they have one car payment, but many of them have two, okay? So those two largest payments that you're making, that mortgage payment and that car payment, and maybe a boat payment, something like that, right? Usually it's some kind of a vehicle payment or an RV. But these are large payments and they're costing you money, okay? So there are things we can do about it. So what are they, right? Okay, in both cases, when you have a mortgage and when you have a car, in both cases, you are throwing away money, either in interest or in value or in both, right? So we know that the minute you drive your car off of that lot, it decreases in value, all right? So if you're driving that car off the lot and you have a 6-year or a 10-year car payment, you are you're turning yourself upside down and inside out, right? Because that car has lost value and you're still paying on it as if it did. Well, and then it doesn't. So now what? So now you have something that is, of no value and you're still paying on it. Then you have a mortgage, right? So you pay the bank for your house, not once, but twice. Okay. You don't only do that once, but you do it twice. So number one, it's for the initial purchase, right? So the initial purchase price is what your loan is for, right? That's the initial loan amount. But number two, I'm going to tell you that you are paying for that house 2 times because the interest itself is costing you another home, okay? So your mortgage and your car are costing you a lot of money. So what can you do about it? Well, we're going to talk to you today about students that came to us and they just purchased a car and they're trying to figure out this velocity banking thing, right? The pay down method. And so they came to us and they said, what can we do? We just bought a car, the payment's a killer, and we want to know what else we can do to save ourselves money and get ourselves out of the payments and the debt that we've incurred. Now, good for them. They have, a little bit of cash, right? So they have a little bit of cash flow. So we're going to work a strategy for them. And then I'm going to show you another way they can work that strategy. But let's revisit the mortgages here for just a second, okay? So your original mortgage cost. So in this scenario for these students, okay, that original cost of their mortgage was $2,011, okay? So, I'm sorry. I wish, right? $2,011 would be great. $211,000 is the original cost of that mortgage, okay? And their interest rate is at a 6.5%, all right? So they are at a 30-year fixed and their payment is $1,333. So that's their payment in, again, 30 years. So they will pay when this is all said and done, when their mortgage is done over 30 years. Now, they will pay a total of $480,000. So to be exact, 480 and 119, right? So they are paying an obscene amount of money over 30 years to pay for a mortgage that originally cost them $211,000. Now, the total in interest payments, just interest alone, is $269,119. So that's where I'm getting it. You pay for your house twice, okay? So it costs you a lot of money to have a mortgage. And you then, you go out and you get this car, right? You drive the car off the lot, and that car, poof, the value is like down, right? It drops immediately. So what can you do about it? What changes can you make in your banking? Well, this is where we propose velocity banking. And this is where we change from traditional banking into a line of credit. So when these students came to us, okay, and we looked at their finances, they had, lucky for them, they had some available equity. So they could have gone out and gotten a personal loan. That's something that they could have done, right? They could have gotten a personal loan, and maybe it would have been for a little bit less than the car loan, but that doesn't get them very far at the end of the day, right? Because a loan, again, is a closed-end product. Closed meaning that once you put your payment in, you can't get any money out of it, nor can you use it to Velocity Bank. So they could have gotten a personal loan. Maybe they could have gotten a personal line. They might have gotten a personal line out there, except the problem is their car loan itself was for, what was it, 32,000? Yeah, no, almost 32,000, okay? So chances are that they could not get a line that high. Usually a personal line of credit is somewhere around 15,000, maybe $20,000, okay? So personal line, yeah, they could have done it, and they could have done it in chunks, but it was a better option for them to look into a home equity line of credit. Remember, always a line, never a loan. That line of credit then offers them some flexibility, okay? So that flexibility is what we're looking for when we look into Velocity Banking. So when they got together with they got their finances together, they looked at it, their home value, I think, was at $310,000, I think is what it was at. So they were at 80% loan to value. So a HELOC, in order to get a HELOC, they look at 80% loan to value. So they're figured on an 80% loan to value. So whatever your mortgage is, right? Or I'm sorry, not your mortgage, but whatever your equity is, to calculate what your HELOC line amount can be, you multiply that by 0.8. So that's 80% loan to value. So they were able to get a $43,000 line of credit at a 9.5% interest rate. So now we have options, right? So let's take a look at them and see what they can do. And then I'll talk to you about why I brought up the whole loan in the first place, even though it is the car loan that we're paying for today. All right, so these students have an income of $4,280 a month. So that's their monthly income. Their expenses are $3,862, which leaves them $418 in cash flow. So decent cash flow, right? It's doable. They have cash flow, which is great. So if their mortgage is currently at $205,000, now I know I said it was $211,000 over here. That was when they originally got the mortgage. So they bought their home in 2023. So they're a year or almost 2 years in, okay? And so right now their mortgage amount is $205,000. It is at a $1,333 payment. And they have a car loan, and this is the car loan that we want to take care of, okay? So it's this here that we are most concerned with, or they are most concerned with at this point. So they have a car loan for $31,800. The payment, again, I said it was a killer at $621. So that payment at $621, the interest rate on that auto loan is 6.5%. And it's a 5-year loan, and the payback amount, if they were to allow that loan to term out, it would cost them in interest $5,434. All right. Now, they also have a Discover card. So the Discover card here also keeps things a little bit tighter for them. So that Discover card is at $14,000. We rounded up a little bit. So $14,000 just to make even numbers. And it is at a payment of $462, okay? And it's at 23%. So right now that Discover card is a 23% interest rate. And if they allow this to term out as well, it would take them 4.6 years to pay it off. And they would be spending $10,265 in interest payments, okay? So that means over here, a total in interest payments is going to be $15,699 to term both of these out, okay? And it would cost them in time right around 5 years, okay? We know 5 years for the original and 4.6 for the Discover. Original, I mean car loan. So the total debts that they have at this point are $250,800, right? Including our mortgage. But today we're just talking about, or in this scenario, we're just talking about the debts that they have between the car and the Discover, which is $45,800, okay, for those two debts alone. So what are our options here? Well, we know that, okay, remember, number one step in our pay down strategy, the 3-step strategy, number one step is organizing all of their bills, right? So we did that with them. They organized everything. They sent us their sheets. We took a good look at it. And so when we talk about doing something such as this for them, right? They brought their car loan to us, but we're going to take a look at it holistically, right? So that's what you guys should be doing with your finances too. Taking a look at your entire picture, not just one or two debts to take care of. Maybe you look at that entire picture to see how you can accelerate everything for you. So that's what we did. All right, so this HELOC, okay, if they were just, let's say they were just going to take care of that car loan, okay? And so we know we're going to take and envelop that, right? That home equity line of credit is going to eat that mortgage or that car payment, right? It's going to take that car on, it's going to take the entire amount of that car and eliminate that auto loan payment. So if they do that, knowing they have $43,000 in available equity, and again, not wanting to take them too high, right? Trying to leave them some breathing room. So if we start out with $31,800, which is again the amount of their car, and we subtract our income, now we can take their entire income and we can put it on that home equity line of credit. Well, why can we do that and how can we do that? If we know they have other expenses out there, why on earth would we take their entire income and put it on this line of credit? Well, the reason being is that lines of credit are figured on an average daily balance. And we know that we can, with lines of credit, put all of our income in and take all of our expenses out. And when we do that, we then eliminate payments through cash flow, right? We alleviate that cash flow for ourselves and we're able to work our debts down faster. So that's exactly what we're going to do with this auto loan. We are not only going to pay off that auto loan with that home equity line of credit. And again, a lot of you guys are looking at that going, that's at 9.5. The auto loan is at 6.5. Why on earth would you do that? Well, we do it because of velocity banking, all right? So income in, expenses out. This allows us to work down our debts faster. So here we are at 31.8. We bring in our income, right? This is our income. Here's our income here. We're bringing in the income here. So that drops our balance to $27,520. So why? Why are we doing this? Again, it's all about that interest rate and it's all about the average daily balance. So when we do that, we're taking the 31, dropping it immediately to $27,520, all right? And so we know, though, that we can pay our expenses out of this line of credit as well. That's how lines of credit work, you guys. You can pay everything out of that line of credit that is chargeable, okay? So if you're working with a credit card to do this, which you could, you have to hold out things that are non-chargeable. So that's when I make the distinction between chargeables and non-chargeables. I'm talking about it because I know some of you can do this with a credit card, but you can't pay loans with a credit card. And so anything like a credit cards themselves or auto loans or your mortgage, you can't pay out of your credit card. So those, you have to hold those payments out. Everything else you can. But in this case, with the home equity line of credit, everything then is chargeable. So you can run all of your expenses out of that line of credit. So what happens is money comes into that checking account, right? Through your direct deposit. You then take that money from your checking account, you make a payment to that line of credit in the entire amount of your paycheck. And then you work your expenses out of that checking account, knowing that the funds are going to pull from that home equity to cover those charges, okay? So anything you're charging at this point is pulling from that line of credit, that home equity line of credit, and paying for it. All right, so now we're at $27,520 after we make our deposit. Then our expenses have to come out, okay? Now remember, car loan itself, our expenses are now $32.41. Wait a minute. I thought I said up here our expenses were $38.62. So how are we down to $32.41? So some of you already know the answer to that, but the answer is this. Your car payment was $621 a month. We are able to subtract that car payment from our expenses. Number one, because we don't have it anymore, right? It was taken over by that home equity line of credit. Now, any payment we would have to make monthly to our home equity line of credit now is satisfied because we are putting all of our income into that home equity line of credit payment, all right? And when you do that, the only thing you have left to take care of is the interest, because the mortgage companies still want their interest, credit card companies still want their interest. So now the dollars that would have been going to, pay down that car payment, mortgage, credit card, whatever, right, when working with a line of credit, that all comes back to you as income, all right? Not as income, but that as cash flow. That comes back as cash flow. So this 621 now, we reduce it from our expenses, again, because we don't have that expense anymore. So now our total expenses are $3,241. Now, we do owe the interest, like I said, for this home equity line of credit. We know that the home equity line of credit is at 9.5%. So how do we figure out what our interest is going to be? Well, you do that by taking your high balance and adding it to your low balance. So we take the $31,800, we add it to $27,520. We're going to divide that by 2 to get our average. We take that number, that is our average, and we then multiply it by 0.095, right? Because we're turning the 9.5% into a decimal. So we're multiplying it by 0.095. We get another number, and that number is then a year's worth of interest for this home equity line at this dollar amount. But we don't want a year. We only want 12 months. We only want 1 month of it, right? So we're going to divide that by 12 to get our 1 month of interest. All right, so when we do that, we end up with $234, okay? So again, how did I get the interest? I take my high balance, 31,800, and I add it to the low balance, which is 27,520. So 27,520. And it gives me 59,320, which I then divide by 2, which gives me 29,660. Then I multiply that by 0.095, which gives me 2817.7. And then I'm going to divide that by 12, and that's going to give me my 234. Okay, so that's your 234. That is your interest rate. Okay, so now we're going to work this strategy down, right? So we're going to do this every single month in and month out. Okay, we are going to then be putting our income in to our line of credit, and we are then going to be taking our expenses out, and we're going to be taking the interest out because our interest is going to be coming out monthly just the same. Now, again, month 2, you take your high balance, you add your low balance, you divide by 2. Okay, you add them together, you divide by 2. You get that number, which you then multiply by 0.095. You take that, divide it by 12, and you get your next month's number, which is 228. And as you can see, 234 is higher than 228, and it's going to continue to go that way and drop your interest charges every month. So now we're at, let's see, this is month 1, this is month 2. So we're now down to 25,904. So if we just take care of this auto loan and we don't do anything else, what does this look like? What has this now done for this couple? Well, they have spent in time 31 months, okay? And they have spent in interest, so 31 months, so just a little over 2 years, and in interest, they've spent $4,060. $4,060 as opposed to letting this term out through 5 years, it costing them $5,434. So they shaved off time and they've shaved off money. But that's never good enough for me, right? Because knowing that they were able to get a $43,000 home equity line of credit, I propose that they also take care of that Discover card, right? Doing the same thing. So here's what that would look like for them. So if we let this home equity loan, run down for 12 months, for a year, okay? And then at that time, we decide we're going to pull in the Discover, okay? We're going to pull in the Discover after a year's worth of time, working that line down, that home equity line down, now giving us availability to pull in our Discover card. Now, we could have done it before that, right? Because we do have room. Remember, this was only 43,000. We put in 31. I want to leave you guys room. I want to leave you guys oh shiznit money, right? So if something happens, you need to have a place to go. So when we can, we do that. And in this case, worked out fine because they do have cash flow naturally, okay? So after a year's worth of time, they can then start by pulling in our Discover, okay? So after 12 months, our loan now, our home equity line of credit is at $21,712, okay? And they have spent $2,380 in interest. But at the same time, that Discover card is continuing to be paid, right? So it's being paid, and they have paid interest on that. We know that at this point, our balance, number one, for the Discover card is lower. It's at $11,460. Remember, it started out at $14,000, but it's now down to $11,460. And at this point also, they have paid $3,236 in interest for that Discover card, okay? So that there, they have paid in interest. So we have to add those two together. So at this point in time, after 1 year, they have paid $5,616, okay? In total interest, all right? So then what we're going to do, obviously, is we're going to pull in the Discover loan. We're going to add these two together, which leaves us at $33,172. And now we're going to start all over again, right? So remember, we're a year in. We're going to start this all over again. So what we do is we bring in our income, $4,280. We then get a balance of, after that, $28,892. And then our expenses hit. And our expenses are $2,779. Whoa, wait a minute. What's going on here? We thought the expenses were $33,241, and they were. But now we no longer have that Discover card, do we? So this payment, this payment here of $462 comes back to us, and we don't have to then, we can then subtract that from our expenses, right? So that's where we're getting the $2,779 in expenses. But we have to add our interest back in again, right? So again, same calculation, the high plus the low, added together, divided by 2, multiplied by 0.095, and then that number is divided by 12, and we get our first month of the new loan, right? The new loan amount of $245. All right. So that means our balance has come back up to $31,916. Okay. So we are going to then continue this on. Same formula, same format. It's pretty simple, right? So after you've identified, right, we organized everything. We identified what we were going to do, which was what debt destroyer we're going to use. And in this case, it's a home equity line of credit. Then we're at the stage where we're implementing our plan, right? So in the implementation process, we've taken 12 months to take care of the first loan, which is our car loan, right? We took care of that. And now we're pulling in that Discover card, okay? So what do things look like at this point, and how long does it take in total? Well, this is how long it takes. All right, let me reveal this. Okay, so now what happens is our total time it took us is 34 months, okay, and 2.8 years to finish this out, okay? To finish all of this out is 34 months and 2.8 years. So now what we do is we take a look at our interest. Well, what's the interest that we've paid? Well, the interest is we take our 5616 from here, right? 5616 from here, from the two loans as they're going. And then we have to add in the last bit of interest that we would pay, okay? Which is going to be $2,971. Because when you run this out with the expenses being even less, that takes us, let me get that number for you. 22 months, okay? That takes us 22 months to finish that. So adding those both together, we get 34 months. We've paid in that 22 months, $2,971 in interest running it this way, which means we have paid a total amount of $8,587 to take care of all of this debt. So we would have paid $15,699 for both of them. We have now paid $8,587. We've saved time, we've saved money, right? And in savings, we save $7,112. This is pretty powerful. Now, going a step further and continuing into the future with this, what can this couple do? How do they save wealth, right? How do they change the 250, right? How do they change that? Well, now, seeing as they've paid off this home equity line of credit in its entirety in a matter of 34 months, what if they take chunks from that home equity line of credit and pay down the principal of this mortgage? And then they run it just like this. How fast could they pay that mortgage off? If this is a 30-year loan and they're somewhere around 2 years into it, I can guarantee they're going to cut it in half, if not sooner than that, saving themselves all of this interest, right? All of this interest. That is velocity banking. This is the power of velocity banking and why we bring this to you guys every day. Hope you guys loved what you learned today, and I hope you guys like and subscribe. We just want to get out the information on velocity banking and how everyone can save themselves time, effort, energy, and a whole lot of sleep. Have a great night. See you guys.